The Three Tenets, it's a Zen Buddhist practice, three-part practice that I found very, very helpful, it's kind of simple and dynamic, really helpful spiritual principles to live by. So I thought, what Zen jokes do I know? So these are some kind of words to live by, and they're kind of Zen with an edge. It's always darkest before dawn. So if you're going to steal your neighbor's newspaper, that's the time to do it. Don't be irreplaceable. If you can't be replaced, you can't be promoted. Think about that. Always remember that you're unique, just like everyone else. That's true. Never test the depth of the water with both feet. That's wise. That's wise. If you think nobody cares if you're alive, try missing a couple of car payments. Zen with an edge. If at first you don't succeed, skydiving is probably not for you. If you lend someone $20 and never see that person again, it was probably a wise investment.
There you go.
I'm not sure about that one.
Yeah, they won't ask for
Here's
another
one.
20.
Everyone seems normal until you get to know them. Generally speaking, you aren't learning much when your lips are moving.
That's true.
Experience is something you don't get until just after you need it. That's true. And finally, before you criticize someone, you should walk a mile in their shoes. That way, when you criticize them, you're a mile away, and you have their shoes. I kind of like that one. Words to live by, Zen with an edge.
That's pretty good.
Well, the Three Tenets, I kind of stumbled upon them just in reading recently. I've always been interested in Zen Buddhism, different aspects of it, the teachings of it. And this is a real core thing. It was first developed and articulated by Roshi, which is sort of a Zen Buddhist teacher name, Roshi, teacher, Bernie Glassman of Zen Peacemakers Organization in 1994. And since then, it's kind of really caught on. A lot of Zen Buddhists, of course, practice it, but also people from many other faiths and practices use these basic tenets. And of course, I was really engaged with the idea they're very akin to the teachings of Jesus. I mean, they're really not different at all. The same themes come up again and again in so many of our spiritual traditions. The Three Tenets, they're basically three simple practices to keep in mind, or attitudes, that are really sort of become a way of life. And although the three aspects of it are taught one at a time, they're really sort of, they all interconnect and overlap, and you're kind of always kind of going back and forth among them, and they're very simple. The Three Tenets are not knowing. Second one is bearing witness, and the third one is taking appropriate action. Not knowing, bearing witness, and taking appropriate action or appropriate response. So just real briefly on those, and I hope maybe you find them useful as well. I find it something I can just work with daily. Remind myself that I don't know. Bear witness, be present to life. Look for the appropriate response. And they kind of go back and forth, and you kind of sift through them, and they kind of overlap and interconnect. Not knowing is about letting go of fixed ideas about yourself, about others, or about the universe. Letting go of fixed ideas. Jesus said, "Judge not." Very same idea. And by that he meant the very same kind of things. Don't evaluate, criticize, analyze. Don't keep with the same fixed opinions. Don't leap to assumptions about yourself, about others, about life. Remember, you don't know. It's the very same idea, and it happens all the time in our lives. This is really something we need to work with daily. Wouldn't you agree? It's just something about the human brain. We want to leap to judgments. I don't know what it is. It's some kind of a simplifying thing we want to do. We want to boil it down. It's like, oh, he's that kind of person. She's that sort of person. Or, oh, I've seen this before. Or I know what to expect from life. Or we kind of want to boil it down. And instead of staying open, remembering we really don't know this person, we really don't know this situation, we really don't know everything that's possible in life. There's a lot of things we don't know, and we have to kind of remind ourselves. It's the human ego, I think. The human ego is just always kind of popping up there. I know, and we don't. So we have to kind of remind ourselves of that daily, because all those mistaken judgments cause us pain and shut us down from each other. That's the result of all those fixed opinions. They separate, they divide, and they cause us pain in ways great and small. Little judgments, big judgments. In church ministry, or just in a lot of people who don't do public speaking or performing, you get a lot of opportunity to come up against those kinds of fixed opinions or assumptions you make about people. I remember in a previous church I served, I had a man in the congregation who was always falling asleep while I spoke. That could be hurtful. But you know, it's not an uncommon thing actually to, especially if you don't sleep well. But I remember thinking, oh God, I'm just really boring the pants off that guy. I don't know what's going on there. But I remember having a conversation after church one Sunday, and he sort of apologized about falling asleep. He had terrible sleep apnea, wasn't sleeping well at all. Entirely understandable. So maybe a wonderful blessing in being able to sit in a quiet, peaceful place and feel a little rest. That's a blessing. That's a blessing. Nothing to object to in that, and certainly nothing to offend. But it can be easy to leap to an assumption about something like that based on an appearance. Don't we do that often? I remember another very talented musician we had hosting in town, and she was doing a concert. It was a small concert, and shortly after starting into a song, someone got up and left. I felt like the musician was a little thrown by that, to get up in the middle of a performance and walk out. I happened to know the person who walked out. The song was about her mother. A song had been written about her mother, her relationship with her mother. The young woman who left had just lost her mother the week before. She just died. She was, very much in the thick of grief at that time, and being reminded by the emotion of the song, of her own grief and so on. There wasn't any personal offense again, and yet there was a feeling of that. We're wrong a lot. Wouldn't you agree? When we make assumptions about what somebody else is, what do they mean? What are they implying? What do they think about us? We're usually wrong. And we need to remind ourselves of being wrong often. It's so easy to leap to judgments based on people's appearance or manner, what they do, how they look. I'm reading a book I'm enjoying a lot right now called Standing at the Edge. It's written by a Buddhist nun by the name of Joan Halifax. And she's done a lot of work in prisons and things like that, a lot of work with terminally ill people and maximum security prisons. And she told a story in the book I just read this past week about when she started a meditation class at this maximum security prison somewhere around Santa Fe in Arizona, is where she's based. And she went in she was given permission. It's something she'd been wanting to do and trying to do for quite a while. She wanted to go in and teach mindfulness meditation to the prisoners in this maximum security prison. So she got permission to do it, she and another nun, Buddhist nun, and but they were cautioned, no one will be with you, and the guards do not have instructions to come to the rescue for you, so you need to be able to handle yourself. Go all through the gates and all this, bars, and they were in with this group of men are brought in, and they're sitting in a group, and this is a rough-looking bunch. It's a rough-looking bunch, big guys and tattoos and hairnets on the heads. I didn't remember that as a fashion statement, but apparently it was at some point. Kind of a tough look with them, hairnets on the head. And so Joan Halifax and her another little nun with her both petite women. They shave their heads in Buddhist nuns, and they're in their traditional robes, and they're sitting in the circle, and Joan suggests they kind of go around the circle with a check-in, how everyone is feeling, and so on. And it's kind of a burly, rough-looking bunch. They're not saying too much, and it's a little frightening. What could happen? The potential. These are people who murdered, others, violent crime, and so on. And so there's not much being said as they go around the circle. A lot of crossed arms, chests, and finally they get near the end of the circle, and then a guy says a little something about being there. I can't, nothing significant, but he passes along has a little gift for Joan Halifax, and he passes it along the circle to give to her, and she opens it really carefully and slowly, and it's a hairnet, and she puts it on, and they just burst into laughter. This burly bunch of tattooed, hairnetted guys, it just erupts into laughter with this nun with a hairnet on their bald head. It was a masterful not knowing, a demonstration, I think. Masterful not knowing. She overcame her assumptions based on what she was seeing, who was around her. She kind of overcame that kind of instantaneous anxiety, insecurity, and thought, I don't know these men, where they're coming from, and I bet they're like me, I bet they're just like me, and we're going to meditate together, and this is a good way of getting started. I'm just like you. I'm going to put my hairnet on. Masterful not knowing. I just love that. That's an inspiring story to me. If she can do that with, murderers and criminals of all kinds, we can do that with one another. We can do that in any situation in life. We can set aside the assumptions and the judgments and go, I do not know. I'm going to just show up. I'm just going to be present. And then that's the second step, which is bearing witness. I'm going to just bear witness. That's an interesting phrase to think about, to bear witness. It doesn't mean to be a bystander. It doesn't mean to be uninvolved. It means to be fully present to the whole of life, even the unpleasant. To show up, to be there, like Joan did with the prisoners. She uses the phrase to come alongside. That's to bear witness. You come alongside. You're not trying to fix. It's not about that. Try to fix somebody, put you on a different level. As the one who fixes and knows better, is in a better position. It's like, no, we are all in this together, and I'm going to bear witness. I'm going to bear witness for you. I'm going to bear witness to what's going on in life. I'm going to courageously be open to life without judgment, without condemnation of myself, you, anyone. I'm going to just kind of be present, not hang back. But not rush forward with judgments. I'm going to see people. It's a tremendous gift to see someone, isn't it? If you've ever been in a situation where you felt like you weren't being seen, like where you felt a little invisible, you find out what a basic and important thing it is to see someone, for someone to be seen. Because so many in our midst are not seen. Homeless people on corners all around town. Underprivileged people in certain economic groups, or just lost ones in our families or communities that aren't being regarded, aren't being seen. We need to bear witness to everyone. Jesus demonstrated that again and again and again. One of the most powerful things when you read through the Gospels was how present he was to everybody without distinction. He's condemned for it by others, that he's a friend of tax collectors and sinners. He was friends with everybody. He was friends with the mentally unstable, with a man chained up in a graveyard because people were so afraid of him. He saw him. He saw everybody. He saw the sick. He saw the crazy. He saw the socially disenfranchised, the unclean, in that culture with all its cleanliness codes and rules. He was present to everybody. He bore witness to everybody. He didn't pretend he didn't see others. And that doesn't seem like a big deal, but in fact it is a big deal. To come alongside someone and bear witness is a tremendous gift, and such a basic and important thing to do. In ministry, you find that out again and again, especially the pastoral care side of ministry. The biggest thing is just showing up, just being there with someone. I bet many of you have found this in your own lives, isn't it? Most people know you can't fix their problems. You can't fix all the situations in their lives. None of us can. But to be present with someone, bear witness, see them, and let them feel that they are being seen, they are being heard. Isn't that a great blessing? It's a tremendously powerful thing, and it's a simple thing to practice. But it's so challenging for us at the same time. I was remembering a wonderful nurse I met many, many years ago. I haven't seen her since. But Nurse Carolyn, that's all I remember is her first name. I met her in a hospital in Atlanta in May of 1990. And my mother was in that hospital, and she was dying in that hospital. And Carolyn was one of the nurses. And it was an early hospice days. It was only just beginning to come out. We didn't have the benefit of it. And so we were in a hospital room, and when things shifted and it looked like she was going to be going on, and the hospital couldn't move us at that point, although they probably would have liked to. So they just kind of stayed out of the room. They just kind of stayed away because they didn't really know what to do. Hospitals are more geared to treatment, intervention, fixing. But in a situation like that, it's not about the fixing. It's not. But Nurse Carolyn, who happened to be on duty the day my mother passed on, which was a tremendous blessing to us, she came in and out of the room all day long, and just sat. She came alongside. She just came alongside. She sat with us. She listened to us, our fears, our anxieties. She talked from her own experience. This is what I've seen. This is what I've seen when people have died. This is how I feel. I'm not afraid of death. This is my experience. She shared from her own experience, professionally and personally, and mostly just sat with us. Often she'd just come in and sit with us for a while, and the tremendous comfort of having someone with you who had the courage to just bear witness, to just come alongside. We felt that deeply that day. And no condemnation of the others who stayed away. It's really beyond what people in a hospital are really just, kind of trained to do at a certain point. And they didn't have hospice coming in. They didn't know what to do. So we were kind of left on our own. But not. We had Carolyn. We had Carolyn who shared and who just kind of came alongside us. What a tremendous gift. I was guided as a result of that to send a thank you letter in the weeks afterwards, talking about Carolyn and what a gift she was to us that day. And then after time, I felt some guidance to get involved in some hospice volunteer work, because I wondered about how to be present for others, how to come alongside others in the same way she had done for us. Could I do that? Would that be an appropriate response? That's the third part then. We bear witness, and then we reflect. Is there something that's ours to do here? Is there something that's ours to do here? The appropriate response. It's not taking action in the sense of, kind of knee-jerk, got to do something. Okay, this has happened, this is what I'm seeing, I've got to do something about it now. It's more of an internal process that kind of, it's action or a response that arises from the not knowing and the bearing witness. We affirm every day what we don't know. We remind ourselves what we don't know. We bear witness to whatever's going on before us, whatever we're encountering, whoever we're dealing with in life. And then based on that, we let that kind of guide us to, is there something we're meant to do? Kind of like I was with the hospice volunteer work, with the expression of gratitude to the nurse. Sometimes it comes to us. It's a matter of guidance. It's a matter of reflection and guidance. What action that might be, what that appropriate response might be. And another friend recently who lost his wife after many years of dialysis and things like that to kidney disease. And he too, after a space of time of reflection of what he'd been through, what he bore witness to, was guided to take up hospice volunteer work. It's a very common thing. Some of you in the room might have done that or know yourself people who they've come through something like that, they've borne witness, and then the appropriate response somehow rises up in them. I need to do something about this. I need to participate in this and see what I can do. And there's a deep satisfaction that comes from following that kind of guidance when it comes, knowing this is sort of the appropriate response for you and following through on it, not hanging back from it. I think it's important to kind of bear in mind, though, it's not action in the push ahead kind of way that sometimes we're taught in the worldly arena. Sometimes the appropriate response isn't doing anything at all right now. Maybe it's just going back to not knowing and bearing witness and continuing to reflect. Sometimes it's deciding, I'm going to think more about that. I'm going to pray on that. I'm going to hold that in the light for a while and can continue to remember that I'm open. I don't have all the answers. I'm going to continue to bear witness. Sometimes it's just a lesson we're going to take to heart, remember in the months and the years to come. I have a lot of moments like that. I bet some of you have too, where you just, you have an experience, you've borne witness to something, and then you're reflecting on that, and maybe there's a moment of regret, or there's a discovery, something you're going to remember in the future, something you're going to take with you. It's important. But nothing really you're going to do outwardly. You're going to do it inwardly. You're going to do it inwardly. I had an experience like that. And I may have shared it with you before, but a man named Ray, who I met years ago in my very first workshop teaching experience. It was at Unity in Columbus. And was very excited about it, very pleased that the minister, there was a co-minister team at the church at the time, they were excited about me offering this workshop too. I was very, very interested in Joseph Campbell at the time, and the hero's journey. I think many of you are probably familiar with his work, and how that spiritual journey is all of ours. And so I designed an 8-week workshop on that, once a week, on the hero's journey, and encountering that as a personal thing. How are we all on our own hero's journeys? And there was a man in that workshop named Ray who could have taught the workshop himself if he'd been guided to do it, because his hero's journey had been so profound. He'd been through some hard times. He'd been an alcoholic. He'd been homeless as a result of his alcoholism and addiction. He made his way back from that to a life of sobriety. And community and friendship, and was seemingly in a much more stable place. And his presence was much enjoyed in the workshop as people shared their stories with one another. I remember he came early to one of the workshop sessions. I think it was only maybe the second or third time early in the workshop. And he just got there a little early while I was setting up, and we chatted a little bit, just 5-10 minutes before the workshop. And I was, very busy. I was very on task with my workshop stuff and my handouts and organizing the chairs in the room and creating the space and the whiteboard. It was my first workshop. I wanted to get everything right. And so I just kind of remember kind of a casual conversation about a former friend, alcoholic, had come to stay with him for a while, was on his couch, and just chatting back and forth. How that could be challenging in a lot of ways, and he must really need the support and guidance right now. I'm sure you're a blessing to him, and pretty surface level chatting. Sometime the following week, several days into the following week after that night's workshop, I had word from the minister at the church that Ray had killed himself. And of course the minister at the church was asking the same questions I was. Why didn't I see anything? Is there, what could have happened? It can be so hidden, the desperation in someone, the grief. And of course I thought to myself, was he coming early that night? If I'd been more present, might I have heard something? Might I have been able to communicate something helpful? No way to know that. And the ministers of the church were asking the same thing. Why didn't we see what was going on with him if it was this serious? Why didn't either of us see this? To me, that's a bearing witness. That's a not knowing and a bearing witness. And sometimes when you have an experience like that you have regrets. And I kind of make a distinction between regret and guilt. I don't know whether you do, but I consider, guilt is kind of a burdensome thing, that often you don't even connect it with something. It's just like you just feel this burdensome emotion of guilt. But regret, I think of something that's maybe more useful. Whenever we do something that's like, I wish I'd made another choice there, if I had it to do, I'd probably turn the dial on that a little bit and make it a little bit different. I'd regret that. If I had I would shift that a little bit and make a different choice the next time. That's useful to me. I find that a useful thing, and to me, that's something I drew out of that was not a burden of guilt. We don't know, what we could have done for another. It's not something we can know. But I can take from that a lesson, and for me, that was the appropriate response. To take that from that a kernel of wisdom and guidance, that in future I'm going to try to keep my priorities a little straighter in any kind of a teaching situation. The presence, being present to one another, is always more important than the documentation. Would you agree? Always more important than the business at hand. Always more important than the details, the documents, the handouts, the lecture notes. Always more important than being present to one another, and the importance of remembering that. And very often what I've found, and this is the power of forgiveness at work in our lives, if we take that little kernel, that lesson, and we take it to heart, that's the appropriate response. That's the action that's needed to take. And then we are free of any guilt or burdens. There's something in the universe that just is like, okay, you've got that kernel of wisdom, you go girl, you go. There's no burdens trailing from you. You've taken the lesson from it. And you've got that, that gold nugget to take with you into the future, so that you will not, so that you're more likely to make better and better choices as we move forward. The universe supports us in that. Every little time we think, I wish I hadn't done that. I think in the future I'm going to do this. That would feel better to me. Every time we do that, we are free from anything in the past, and we move forward with greater power. Would you agree? I think that's how it works. So those regrets are actually helpful. Those are helpful little eurekas, little discoveries we make, so that we can move forward freer, able to maybe make better and better choices as we move forward, and not carry any burdens from the past. These are practices, this Three Tenets, I think, are a helpful way to kind of stay centered, in touch with ourselves, how we're doing, moving forward, kind of not knowing, reminding ourselves what we don't know, catching ourselves in judgments and assumptions, or condemnations, or criticisms, ourselves or others, catching ourselves in that, reminding ourselves we are open to life, we do not have the answers, but we're going to bear witness, we're going to be courageously open and present to one another, to life, to what's happening in our lives. And then, based on what's coming from that experience, we're going to reflect on that, and if there's something that's ours to do, we're going to do it with courage, we're going to step forward, take action on that, or we're going to just take that lesson with us, we're going to take that to heart and let it enrich us moving forward, or we're just going to keep not knowing and bearing witness and listening and reflecting and being guided as we step forward. I bear witness to life with courage and compassion. That's my affirmation for the day. Would you like to join me in that? I bear witness to life with courage and compassion. Let's take that into prayer for a moment. Whatever the circumstances in our lives, wherever we find ourselves, we are God-connected and God-guided. We step forward courageously, openly, hearts and minds wide open. Quick to remember, we do not have the answers. We do not make judgments or assumptions. We encounter life openly, with open minds and open hearts, and we bear witness to it in fullness, without holding back and without judging. God guides us in what is ours to do as we step forward with courage and compassion, and we are grateful. And so it is. Amen.